All right, so today we're diving deep into Agile Project Management.
Ooh, fun.
It's one of those things that everyone's talking about these days, whether you're prepping for a job interview or maybe you're trying to level up your skills or maybe you're just curious, like, what's all the hype about Agile?
Right.
So we're going to try to give you the core concepts today, but also give you like a little bit of a taste of what it's like to think like an Agile project manager. And we're using a really interesting source for this.
Yes.
We are going meta
Very meta.
with a guide to Agile Project Manager interview questions and answers.
Oh, wow.
We're basically using the prep material to actually prep you, the listener, for Agile.
That's so interesting because what we're doing is not just giving definitions.
Right.
We're going to explore, how does an agile project manager think?
Yeah.
How do they approach problems? So it's really like we're giving you that backstage pass to the agile mindset.
Yeah, I love that so much more than just memorizing a bunch of terms. We're going to really get a feel for like, okay, if I was in the hot seat,
Yeah.
how would I actually apply these things in the real world? Right.
And I think there's no better place to start than with like the foundation of it all.
Okay.
The Agile Manifesto. I've always kind of wondered, what is that?
Yeah.
Why is it such a big deal?
So the Agile Manifesto, it's more than just a document. It's a philosophy.
Okay.
You have to think back to the early 2000s. Software development was often rigid, bureaucratic, and really out of touch with what users actually needed. So this Agile Manifesto was a reaction to that. It was this call for a more responsive and human-centric approach.
So it was like a revolution.
It really was. It shook things up, and it led to all these Agile methodologies we use today.
Okay.
And it outlines 4 core values that, believe it or not, are still so relevant today, even outside of software development.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's hear them.
All right, so the first one is individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
Okay. That sounds pretty straightforward, but like in practice,
Yeah.
what does that actually mean?
It means that people are at the heart of any successful project.
So it's about fostering collaboration and open communication and trust within teams rather than getting bogged down by rigid processes or only relying on tools.
But don't tools like Jira and Trello actually help teams collaborate?
Yes.
I mean, those are pretty essential to Agile projects, right?
They can be incredibly helpful, but they're just
Okay.
they're tools. They can't fix a dysfunctional team or magically create this culture of collaboration.
Yeah.
So the emphasis here is on building those strong relationships and open communication patterns.
Got it.
Then the tools come in to amplify all those efforts.
So it's like having the fanciest kitchen gadgets won't make you a good cook if you don't know, like, the basics.
Exactly. That's a great analogy.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, so the second value is working software over comprehensive documentation. This one might seem counterintuitive.
Especially these days when it seems like we document everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
I know I've been on projects where I felt like we spent more time writing documentation than actually building.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right. And that's exactly what this is addressing.
Okay.
It's shifting that focus away from all that upfront planning and documentation to actually delivering tangible results quickly and iteratively.
So like a minimum viable product, get something out there that actually works, get feedback, and then refine it as you go.
You got it.
It's about being dynamic and responsive,
Yes.
not getting stuck in analysis paralysis.
Exactly. And acknowledging that you can't always plan for every eventuality up front.
Right, you got to be able to adapt as you go.
Exactly.
All right, what about number 3?
Number 3, customer collaboration over contract negotiation.
Ooh, okay. I'm sensing a theme here. Keep the customer happy.
Well, it's more than just keeping them happy.
Okay.
It's recognizing that they are a vital part of the development process.
Okay.
So building that true partnership, understanding their needs because those needs evolve,
Yeah.
and then incorporating their feedback throughout the entire project lifecycle.
Okay, so it's not just about like sticking rigidly to a contract that might be outdated,
Right.
but about having that more flexible and collaborative relationship with the customer as things change.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
And that leads us very nicely to our final value,
Okay, bring it on.
responding to change
Yeah.
over following a plan.
Okay, this is where Agile gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Like this is the whole point, right?
Exactly.
Be flexible, adapt to change, pivot when you need to, not just blindly follow a plan that might not even be relevant anymore.
It acknowledges that change is inevitable, and embracing it can actually lead to better outcomes.
Okay.
So being able to adjust course, reprioritize things, and find creative solutions when you're faced with these unexpected challenges.
I love it. Okay, so we've got people outcomes, collaboration, adaptability.
Yeah.
That's what the Agile Manifesto is all about. But how do those values actually translate into real-world practices?
That's where the Agile methodologies come in. So
Oh,
this manifesto is like the overarching philosophy.
got it.
And then you have specific methodologies like Scrum and Kanban that give you frameworks for putting these values into practice.
So Scrum and Kanban are like the tools in the Agile toolbox.
Yes, a great way to put it. Each one has their own strengths and weaknesses,
Okay.
and they can be applied in different contexts depending on the project.
Okay, let's start with Scrum. That seems like the most popular one out there.
It is probably the most well-known one.
What are some of the key characteristics of Scrum?
So Scrum is all about structure and iteration.
Well,
It breaks projects down into these short cycles that are called sprints, typically 2 weeks long,
okay.
with a really clear set of goals for each sprint.
So it's like you have these mini projects
Mini projects, exactly.
within the larger project, each with their own deliverables and deadlines.
Yes, and this really helps teams stay focused, deliver value incrementally, and get regular feedback.
Okay.
And a very crucial part of Scrum is the daily stand-up meeting.
I've heard about these.
Yes.
What actually happens during a daily stand-up?
So it is a very quick, focused meeting, usually no more than 15 minutes, where the team gathers, often standing up just to keep it short. And each member answers 3 key questions.
All right, I'm on the edge of my seat. What are they?
So they are, what did you do yesterday? What are you working on today? And are there any roadblocks
Ooh, roadblock.
preventing you from making progress? So it's all about transparency, accountability, and flagging any issues early on.
So it's like a daily pulse check for the team, making sure everyone's on track, any roadblocks get addressed quickly.
Exactly. Now, Kanban, on the other hand, it's less about these time-boxed iterations and more about visualizing the workflow and managing that flow of work smoothly.
So instead of having those sprints, you're kind of going with the flow a little bit more.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
It's about visualizing those different stages of work from to do to in progress to done and limiting the number of tasks that are in progress at any given time to avoid bottlenecks.
So it's like a virtual assembly line where you can see how things are moving through a system.
Yeah.
And identify those areas where things are getting stuck.
Exactly. A great analogy. And our source actually gives some examples of how these two could be applied in different scenarios.
Okay.
So they talk about a software development team using Scrum,
Okay.
which makes sense given its structured nature,
Makes sense.
delivering that working software in iterations.
Yeah, okay.
And then for Kanban, they give an example of a marketing team,
Okay.
which also makes sense because marketing workflows tend to be more fluid, less predictable. New requests are coming in constantly. Priorities are shifting.
Yeah, it's chaotic.
Very chaotic. And that visual nature of Kanban really helps manage that.
It's like having a to-do list that's always changing, but everyone can see it.
Everyone can see it
Yeah, okay.
and contribute to it.
So Scrum or Kanban really depends on the needs of the project and the team's working style.
Yeah.
Okay, this is starting to click, but even with the best methodologies in place, I'm sure there are challenges that can come up.
Oh, absolutely.
One that comes to mind, scope creep.
Yes.
How do you keep a project from spiraling out of control when you've got all these new requests and features popping up left and right?
So scope creep, it's a classic project management challenge, and it's something that Agile methodologies are specifically designed to address.
Okay, good.
And one of the key strategies is clear communication from the very beginning.
Set those expectations early on, make sure everyone understands the boundaries of the project.
Exactly. Be transparent about what's included, what's not included,
Yeah.
and have those sometimes difficult conversations about the potential impact of adding new things or changing requirements.
So sometimes you have to say no,
Yes.
which can be hard, especially when you want to please your clients or the stakeholders.
It can be, but it is crucial for the project's long-term success.
Okay.
Another strategy is using that sprint planning.
Okay.
So by carefully planning each sprint and only committing to a certain amount of work, you're creating that natural boundary against scope creep.
It's like saying, this is what we can realistically achieve within this 2-week sprint. Anything else will have to be prioritized and potentially added to a future sprint.
Exactly. It's managing those expectations.
Yeah.
Making sure the team can focus on delivering value within that agreed upon time frame.
And if a new request does come in,
Yeah.
you have to evaluate the impact on the timeline,
Yes.
the resources,
Absolutely.
and overall of the
Exactly.
action
It's
required.
not just yes or no. It's carefully considering those implications and making an informed decision.
Not just saying no, but strategically managing expectations, making sure the project stays on track.
Exactly the Agile way.
Okay, now speaking of challenges, let's talk about something that everyone I think can relate to.
Okay.
Something that can make or break a team.
Yes.
Difficult team members.
Oh.
I think we've all encountered that team member who consistently misses deadlines doesn't really contribute their fair share or just brings the energy down.
It's true, and our source gives this great anecdote about handling a team member who was consistently missing those deadlines, not fully participating in daily stand-ups.
Yeah, because that sounds like a classic case of someone not pulling their weight. Did they just kick them off the team?
No, they actually took a more empathetic approach, which is often a lot more effective.
Okay.
So instead of jumping to disciplinary action, they had this one-on-one conversation with the individual
Okay.
to really try and understand what their perspective was, any challenges they might be facing.
Try to understand the why behind the behavior before jumping to conclusions.
Yes.
There might be some underlying issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah, and in this case, the team member was struggling with some personal issues that were impacting their work.
Yeah, that's a good reminder that everyone is going through something.
Right.
And sometimes those personal challenges can kind of spill over into the workplace.
Yes.
So it's important to have that empathy and understanding.
Absolutely. And after understanding that root cause, they discussed potential solutions,
Okay.
such as maybe temporarily adjusting their workload or providing additional support from other team members.
So finding a way to support that team member, but also making sure that the project can move forward.
Exactly. That balancing act. And importantly, they didn't try to just sweep it under the rug.
Right.
They communicated the situation and the proposed solution at their next retrospective meeting.
Ah, okay. So being open and honest about the challenges helps to build trust
Yes.
and create a more collaborative environment.
Exactly.
Did it work?
It did.
Nice.
Over time, the team members' performance improved, and they became an active contributor to the project once again.
I love that story. It's a great example of how Agile values
Yeah.
collaboration, people centricity can be applied even in those really tricky situations.
Yes.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about another crucial aspect of Agile project management.
Okay.
Stakeholder communication. I have a feeling this is where things can get tricky,
They can.
especially if you have stakeholders with all these different priorities and expectations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you keep everyone happy?
So stakeholder communication is critical in Agile,
Yeah.
and it's definitely different from how it's handled in that traditional project management. In Agile, communication is ongoing, and it's multi-directional. It's about keeping everyone informed and engaged throughout that entire project lifecycle.
So it's not just about sending a status report once a month
No,
and hoping for the best.
definitely not.
Okay.
Agile is all about transparency and frequent communication, making sure everyone's on the same page, and feedback is incorporated along the way.
Okay, so how does that work in practice?
Yeah, so our source highlights a few methods for effective stakeholder communication in Agile.
Okay, let's hear them.
Okay, so one of the most important is the sprint review,
Okay.
which happens at the end of each sprint to showcase the work that's been completed
Okay.
and gather feedback.
So it's like a mini celebration
A little celebration.
of what the team has achieved and a chance for stakeholders to see the progress firsthand.
Exactly. And you get valuable feedback that can inform those future sprints.
Okay, what else?
Then we have the demo, which is more focused on showing off specific features.
Okay, I can see how that would be really useful for getting stakeholders excited about the progress that's being made.
Exactly. It's that sneak peek
Yeah,
of those cool new features.
love it. Okay, what else?
And then we have information radiators.
Ooh, that sounds very technical.
It sounds very technical, but it's basically these visual tools
Okay.
that give a real-time view of the project status. So a good example is a Kanban board,
Oh, okay.
which visually everyone can see.
It's like having a window into the project.
Yes.
Everyone knows what's happening, what's been done, what's coming up next.
Transparency and keeps everyone on the same page.
Okay.
And finally, you have those classic progress reports.
Yeah.
But they're done a little differently in Agile.
How so?
They're usually more frequent and they're more concise. They focus on key highlights, any roadblocks, and next steps.
So keeping everyone informed without overwhelming them with information overload.
Right. It's all about balance.
Okay. Balance, transparency with efficiency.
Exactly.
I like it. So stakeholder communication is about being proactive. Transparent, consistent, building those strong relationships,
Yeah.
making sure everyone feels heard and informed.
Got it.
All this talk about communication and collaboration has me wondering, what kind of software do Agile project managers actually use to keep everything running smoothly?
Okay.
Are we talking spreadsheets galore, or are there specific tools of the trade?
Spreadsheets can be helpful for certain things,
Yeah.
but they're not going to cut it when you're talking about managing the complexities of an Agile project.
Right.
So luckily, there are several purpose-built tools that have become really essential for Agile teams.
Okay.
And our source mentions 3 popular ones:
Okay, hit me.
Jira, Trello, and Slack.
Okay, let's break those down. So first up, Jira, it seems like it's the go-to tool for Agile teams, especially in software development. What makes it so popular?
It is known for its very comprehensive features and its ability to handle very complex projects.
Sure.
So it allows you to create those user stories, plan sprints, track progress, generate reports, and it even integrates with other Atlassian products like Confluence and Bitbucket.
Sounds powerful, but also maybe a little bit intimidating for someone new to Agile.
It can be.
What about Trello? I've heard that's a little more user-friendly.
Trello is definitely known for its visual simplicity and its ease of use.
Okay.
So it uses that Kanban-style board
Okay.
to track tasks and allows for really easy collaboration and drag-and-drop functionality.
So for teams that want a more visual and intuitive way to manage their workflow,
Exactly.
maybe they're new to Agile, Trello is a good place to start.
Yeah, it's great for smaller teams or those working on projects with maybe less complex workflows.
Okay.
And then we have Slack, which is not strictly a project management tool,
Right.
but it's become really essential
Yeah.
for Agile teams.
It's where all the magic happens.
It's great for that real-time communication, asking those quick questions, sharing updates, and generally keeping the team connected.
So you've got Jira for the heavy lifting,
Yeah.
Trello for that visual overview,
Yes.
and Slack to keep the communication flowing.
Exactly.
Sounds like a winning combination.
It is.
Now let's talk about some of the key roles in an Agile project. And we'll start with the product owner, who plays a crucial role in making sure the team is building the right thing and delivering value to the customer.
Right.
I've heard the term product owner thrown around, but I'm not entirely sure what they do.
Yeah.
What are their key responsibilities?
So the product owner is essentially the voice of the customer within that Agile team.
Okay.
They are responsible for defining the product vision, creating the product backlog.
What is a product backlog?
It's that prioritized list of features and user stories,
Okay.
and they're ensuring that the team is working on the most valuable items.
So they're kind of like the captain of the ship steering the project in the right direction.
Yeah.
Making sure everyone is rowing in sync.
Yes, they're constantly collaborating with stakeholders, getting feedback, and refining that product backlog.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of valuable things, prioritization seems like a constant struggle in Agile.
It is.
When you have so many things to do and you've got limited time and resources, how do you decide what to work on first?
Prioritization is an art form in Agile,
It really is.
and our source outlines several factors to consider when you're prioritizing those user stories in the backlog.
Okay, let's hear 'em.
All right, so the first one is business value.
Okay.
So how much does this feature contribute to the overall goals of the project?
So is it going to make us money, save us money, or make our customers happy?
All of those.
Focusing on the things that are really going to move the needle.
Exactly.
Well,
And you have level of effort.
okay.
So how complex is it to implement this feature? How much time and resources is it going to require?
It's about balancing that potential value with the cost of development.
Right.
You don't want to spend weeks and weeks on something that no one's actually going to use.
Exactly.
Okay.
What else?
Okay, then we have stakeholder input.
What are your customers and users, team members saying about the importance and urgency of this particular feature?
So getting feedback from the people who will be actually using it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then finally, adaptability. How easy is this feature to adapt or change if we need to?
Right, because in Agile, things change.
They do.
You're not locked into that rigid plan.
Exactly.
So it's thinking ahead, anticipating those changes.
Yeah.
Sounds like prioritization in Agile is a dynamic and ongoing process.
It is. You're constantly reevaluating that backlog, getting feedback, and making informed decisions.
All right, so we've talked about prioritizing those features.
Yes.
But how do we know if all this Agile stuff is actually working?
Okay.
How do you measure the success of an Agile project? Is it just high fives and good vibes, or are there more concrete metrics involved?
High fives are always welcome.
Yeah, of course.
But yes, there are more concrete metrics to measure success.
Okay, I like concrete.
Our source mentions 3 key ones:
Lay them on me.
velocity, lead time, and cumulative flow diagrams.
Okay, let's take those one by one.
Okay.
First up, velocity. It sounds like it's all about speed. Are we talking like how fast the team can turn out code?
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
So velocity measures the amount of work a team completes during each sprint,
Okay.
usually in terms of story points or other units of effort. So it's a way to track the team's pace and understand their capacity.
So it's not just about speed, it's about consistency and predictability.
Yes.
knowing how much work the team can realistically deliver
Exactly.
in a given time frame.
Yes, and it helps you plan future sprints more effectively.
All right, next up we have lead time. What's that all about?
So lead time measures the time it takes from when a task is added to the backlog until it's completed.
So understanding how long it actually takes to get things done
Yes.
from start to finish, is this about efficiency,
Exactly.
streamlining that workflow?
Yes, a shorter lead time means a more efficient workflow.
Makes sense. All right, and finally, cumulative flow diagrams. What are those?
They are visual representations of the flow of work through different stages of the project.
So it's like a visual map of the project's progress.
It is.
Showing how work is moving through the system.
Exactly. And it helps you identify any bottlenecks or areas where work might be piling up.
Okay.
They provide insights into the overall health of the project.
So we've got our metrics in place.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the nitty-gritty of planning and executing an agile project.
Okay.
Sprint planning and estimation. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely.
So sprint planning is where the team comes together to decide what work will be tackled during the upcoming sprint and then break that work down into more manageable tasks.
Exactly.
And estimation plays a big role in this.
Essential.
How do you actually estimate effort in Agile?
Yeah.
Is it an exact science or is there some guesswork involved?
Definitely not an exact science, but there are techniques that can help
Yeah.
make it more accurate and collaborative. And our source mentions two popular ones.
Oh, tell me.
Planning poker and t-shirt sizing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So planning poker is fun and engaging.
Okay.
Each team member anonymously estimates the effort,
Okay.
using a deck of cards with different values so it avoids groupthink or someone dominating the conversation.
Oh, that's a good idea. It's like a secret ballot for effort estimation.
It is.
Okay, I like it. And what about t-shirt sizing?
So t-shirt sizing, you're assigning sizes,
Okay. All right.
like small, medium, large, extra large, to user stories based on their relative effort.
Oh, that sounds fun.
It's quick and easy to get a rough estimate.
Okay, so planning poker for a more precise,
Yeah.
maybe anonymous kind of estimation.
Yes.
And then t-shirt sizing for just getting a general sense.
The general sense.
All right, so we've got our sprint planned,
Yes.
tasks estimated.
Yes.
So let's face it, Agile isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
There are bound to be challenges along the way.
Absolutely.
What are some of the common roadblocks that Agile teams encounter?
Okay, so Agile is a framework, not a magic bullet. It doesn't eliminate challenges, but it does equip you with ways to navigate them.
Okay.
And our source highlights a few common ones,
Okay.
like managing remote or distributed teams, handling conflicts between team members, and then adapting to unforeseen challenges.
Okay, those are all very real challenges.
They are.
Let's tackle those one by one.
Right.
Starting with remote teams, it seems like everyone is working remotely these days.
Yeah, it's very common.
So what are some of the unique challenges that remote teams face when it comes to Agile?
So one of the biggest is communication.
Makes sense.
It's easy for things to get lost in translation when you're not in the same room.
Right.
And you can't just walk over to someone's desk and ask them a quick question.
You lose those spontaneous interactions, those informal chats that often spark new ideas or can help resolve things quickly.
Exactly. It's also easier to feel isolated or disconnected when you're working remotely,
Yeah, that makes sense.
which can impact team morale and collaboration.
So what are some strategies for overcoming those challenges?
So our source suggests leveraging tools like video conferencing, instant messaging, and project management software
Okay.
to keep everyone connected and informed.
So using technology to bridge that gap,
Yeah.
maintain that sense of connection, make sure that everyone feels like they're part of the team,
Exactly.
even if they're not physically in the same space.
And you have to be mindful of time zones
Right.
and make sure you're scheduling meetings that are convenient for everyone.
Okay, good point. All right, now let's talk about conflict. It's bound to happen when you have a group of people working together, even if they're all like awesome Agile practitioners.
It happens.
So how do you handle disagreements and conflicts in a way that's constructive and doesn't completely derail the project?
So conflict can actually be a positive force
Really?
if it's managed effectively, or it can lead to new ideas and better solutions.
Okay.
The key is to create that culture of open and honest communication
Okay.
where team members feel comfortable expressing their concerns and perspectives respectfully.
So encouraging that healthy debate.
Yes.
Create a safe space where people can disagree.
Exactly.
Without fear of judgment or retaliation.
Yes, and focus on finding solutions that benefit the team as a whole.
Right. So keep the focus on the shared goals.
Yes.
Find a way to work through those disagreements in a way that moves the project forward.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, unforeseen challenges.
Yes.
No matter how well you plan, there are always going to be some curveballs thrown your way.
Always.
So how do Agile teams handle those unexpected bumps in the road?
So that's where the adaptability of Agile really shines.
Okay, good.
And our source provides a great example of how an unforeseen challenge can be handled. So they describe this situation where a software development team encountered a major issue
Oh.
with integrating two critical components.
Ooh, that sounds like a major roadblock. Did they just throw up their hands and give up?
No, they embraced that Agile mindset and immediately called a team meeting to brainstorm potential solutions. They assessed their options, weighed the pros and cons, and decided to implement a temporary workaround
Okay.
while simultaneously working on a more robust solution in parallel.
So finding a way to keep the project moving forward
Yes.
while also addressing that underlying issue.
Yes, being proactive. Finding those creative solutions.
They didn't just like sweep it under the rug and pretend it wasn't happening.
Exactly.
Okay, so they found a workaround.
Yes.
They're working on a long-term solution.
Yes.
And what else did they do?
And they made sure to reprioritize tasks
Okay.
in the sprint backlog
Right.
and communicate that new plan to all the stakeholders.
That's crucial. Transparency, clear communication are key when you're dealing with the unexpected.
Absolutely.
You don't want to leave stakeholders in the dark
Right.
and create a bunch of confusion and uncertainty.
Exactly.
So this example really showcases the power of adaptability and problem solving in Agile.
Yes.
It's about being able to pivot when needed
Yes.
and find those creative solutions to keep the project on track.
Exactly.
This has been a whirlwind tour of Agile concepts. We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from the Agile Manifesto to handling those difficult team members,
Yep.
navigating unforeseen challenges. I'm starting to see why Agile is so popular.
Yes.
It's not just about following a set of rules. It's really about embracing that mindset.
Yes.
Of flexibility, collaboration, continuous improvement.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Agile is a journey, not a destination.
Ooh, I like that.
It's about constantly learning, adapting, and striving to get better.
And I think one of the key elements of that journey is
Yeah.
the concept of continuous improvement.
Yes.
This is where retrospectives come in, right? I've heard that they're a really important part of the Agile process, but I'm not entirely sure how they work.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through it?
Of course. So retrospectives are all about reflecting on what went well,
Okay.
what didn't go so well,
Yeah.
and how we can improve in the future. So it's a dedicated time for the team to really step back, assess their progress,
Okay.
and identify opportunities for growth.
So it's not just about celebrating successes,
No.
but also about acknowledging areas where things could have been done better.
Exactly.
Mm.
They provide this structured way for the team to openly discuss their experiences,
Yeah,
share feedback, and identify action items for improvement.
I like it. So how does a typical retrospective actually work?
So our source describes this really structured approach that many Agile teams follow.
Okay.
It starts by creating this safe environment
Okay.
where team members feel comfortable sharing openly and honestly.
Right. So it's about setting the stage for open and constructive dialogue,
Yes.
where people can really speak their minds without fear of judgment or repercussions.
Exactly. And then the facilitator,
Okay.
often the Scrum Master or the Agile Project Manager,
Okay.
guides the discussion by asking open-ended questions.
Like what?
Things like, what went well during the sprint? What didn't go so well? And what can we do to improve next time?
I like those. Those are simple but really powerful questions.
Yeah.
Getting people to think critically and reflect on their experiences.
And take ownership of their contributions.
Yeah, and identify those critical issues.
Exactly. And it's not about pointing fingers or placing blame.
Right.
It's about working together as a team.
Okay, so once you've gathered all that feedback,
Yes.
what happens next?
So then the team collaboratively comes up with action plans
Okay.
to address those issues in the next iteration.
So it's about turning those insights into actionable steps
Yes.
that lead to actual improvement.
Exactly. And importantly, those action items are tracked and reviewed in subsequent retrospectives
Okay.
to make sure that they're being implemented and you're seeing that progress.
Accountability is key.
It is.
Okay, so retrospectives are all about creating that feedback loop,
Yes.
allowing teams to constantly adapt and improve their processes.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about two tools that are often used to visualize progress in Agile projects. Burn down charts and burn up charts. I have to admit, I sometimes get these two mixed up.
A lot of people do.
Can you clarify the difference for me?
Of course. So both burn down and burn up charts are visual representations of project progress,
Okay.
but they show the information in slightly different ways. So a burn down chart shows the amount of work remaining
Okay.
in a sprint or project over time.
So it's like a countdown clock showing you how much work is left.
Exactly.
Okay.
It starts with the total estimated effort at the beginning, and it gradually decreases as tasks are completed.
Okay.
The goal is for that chart to reach 0 by the end.
Meaning everything's done.
Everything's done.
Okay, that makes sense. What about burn-up charts? How are they different?
Okay, so a burn-up chart shows the cumulative work completed over time.
Okay.
So it starts at 0 and increases as those tasks are marked as done.
So it's more like a progress bar?
Yes, a progress bar,
Okay.
visually showing how much has been completed.
Okay. And what's the key difference between these two?
A key difference with the burn-up chart is that it often includes a separate line
Okay.
that represents the total scope of the project.
Oh, I see.
So this helps visualize any changes in scope that may have happened.
That could be really helpful, especially in Agile where things are constantly changing.
Yes.
You can see if the project has grown or shrunk in size.
Exactly.
Okay, so burn down chart tracking work remaining.
Yep.
Burn up chart tracking work completed with that added bonus of seeing scope changes.
You got it.
All right, now let's address the age-old dilemma that every project manager faces.
Okay.
How do you balance the need for flexibility
Yes.
with maintaining project deadlines and budgets?
That is the question.
It's a question that plagues many, I think, especially in Agile, where change is kind of embraced.
Yeah.
How do you stay agile and responsive to change without letting the project spiral out of control and blow past those deadlines and budgets?
It's a balancing act for sure, but Agile provides some really helpful strategies, and our source highlights the importance of communication prioritization and continuous evaluation.
Okay, let's unpack those strategies one by one, starting with communication. We've already talked about how important communication is in Agile, but how does it specifically help with balancing flexibility and deadlines?
So communication is about making sure that everyone is on the same page,
Okay.
aware of any changes or adjustments to the project plan. So having open and honest conversations about potential roadblocks, shifting priorities, and really any impact to those deadlines or budgets.
So keeping everyone informed and involved in the decision-making process,
Hey.
not trying to make those decisions in a vacuum.
Exactly. Now let's talk about prioritization. How does that help with maintaining deadlines when things are constantly changing?
It seems like it would make things even more chaotic.
It's about focusing on the most important tasks first,
Okay.
constantly reevaluating that project backlog, and making sure the team is working on those highest value items that'll have the biggest impact.
So it's about making sure that you're delivering the most value
Yes.
within those constraints of time and budget.
Exactly.
So if a new request comes in or a change needs to be made,
Yeah.
you can look at its priority.
Yeah.
See if it can even be accommodated within the existing timeline,
Exactly.
or if something else needs to be deprioritized
Yes.
to make room.
Yes, it's a constant balancing act,
Hmm.
but prioritization helps you stay focused on what matters most.
Okay, now what about continuous evaluation? How does that play into this balancing act?
So continuous evaluation is all about making sure you're not just blindly following a plan
Okay,
that's no longer relevant.
right,
Regularly check in with the team, track those key metrics we talked about,
right.
and be willing to adjust the plan as needed.
So have your finger on the pulse of the project,
Yes,
be able to adapt quickly if things aren't going as planned.
exactly.
Embrace the change, don't fear it.
Exactly. And by constantly evaluating, you can identify those potential roadblocks early on. Make those adjustments to mitigate risks and stay within those deadlines and budget.
So this balancing act, it's definitely an art form,
It is.
but it sounds like with the right strategies in place, it's achievable.
Yes.
Being proactive, communicative, and always willing to adapt.
Yes.
Okay, now let's shift gears and talk about a crucial aspect of leadership in Agile,
Okay.
coaching and mentoring team members.
Yes.
What's the best approach for helping those team members embrace Agile and become more effective practitioners?
So it's about empowering individuals
Okay.
to grow and learn in a supportive environment.
Okay.
So they're not dictating or micromanaging,
Right.
but guiding and facilitating.
So how do you approach coaching and mentoring in this Agile context?
So it starts with understanding your team members. Where are they at in their Agile journey? What is their current understanding?
Right.
What experience do they have? What are their strengths and weaknesses?
So meet people where they are and tailor your guidance.
Exactly. So once you understand their starting point, you can create a personalized learning path for them.
Okay. How would you do that?
So this might include workshops, simulations, pair programming, shadowing more experienced Agile practitioners.
So give them a mix of theoretical knowledge and practical experience.
Exactly. Give them the opportunity to apply those concepts in a real-world scenario.
Yeah, that makes sense. What else?
And it's crucial to foster that environment of open communication and collaboration.
Right. Create that safe space where people feel comfortable asking questions,
Yes.
admitting mistakes, learning from each other.
Exactly. And as a leader, you want to provide regular feedback,
Okay.
both individually and during those retrospectives.
Yeah.
Help team members reflect on their performance, identify those areas of growth, and celebrate those successes.
So this coaching and mentoring approach sounds like a win-win.
It is.
Helps the individuals grow,
Yeah.
which benefits the team and ultimately the project as a whole.
It's that empowerment.
Now let's talk about a situation I think every Agile project manager is going to encounter at some point.
Okay.
Managing stakeholder expectations.
Ooh, yes. They can be a tough crowd to please.
Especially when they have all these different priorities and expectations.
Right.
So how do you navigate those sometimes choppy waters and keep everyone happy?
Yeah, so our source shares a great anecdote about managing stakeholder expectations when a project hits a snag.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So they were developing this new software feature,
Okay.
and the stakeholders were expecting it to be delivered with a very tight deadline.
I've been there, tight deadlines and high expectations.
It could be a recipe for stress and conflict.
For sure. So how did they handle it?
So after carefully assessing the requirements and the team's capacity, it became clear that meeting the original deadline was just going to compromise the quality.
Oh.
So they had to have an honest conversation
Okay.
with those stakeholders.
It's so hard to do that, though.
I know it can be.
Just say yes to everything, especially when it comes to stakeholder requests.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to protect the integrity of the project.
Okay, so they had the tough conversation. What happened?
They explained the situation, presented a revised timeline, and emphasized their commitment to delivering that high-quality product.
Okay, so they were transparent
Very transparent.
and honest,
Oh.
even though it was difficult news.
Yes, and the stakeholders actually appreciated that.
They did.
They agreed to the revised timeline and were happy to be kept in the loop throughout the process.
That's a great example of how building that trust and open communication with stakeholders
Yeah,
really pays off in the long run.
it does.
Even when you have to deliver tough news.
Yes.
Honesty is usually the best policy.
Now, before we jump into more specific Agile challenges,
Okay.
let's take a step back and consider a fundamental question.
Okay.
Is Agile right for every project?
Oh, good question.
It's become such a popular approach,
It has.
but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
That's a really good point. It seems like everyone is jumping on the Agile bandwagon these days.
They are.
But are there situations where it's not the best fit?
Absolutely. And our source outlines a few key factors to consider when you're deciding if Agile is the right approach for a particular project.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so the first is the nature of the project itself.
Okay.
So Agile is really well suited for those complex projects
Okay.
that have evolving requirements, a high degree of uncertainty, or those that require frequent collaboration.
Right. So if you're working on something with a very clear scope, fixed deadlines, and limited need for collaboration,
Yeah.
Agile might be overkill.
It might just add complexity.
Yeah, more overhead.
Exactly. Another factor to consider is the organizational culture.
Okay.
So Agile thrives in those environments that value adaptability, continuous improvement, and that open communication.
So if you're working in a very hierarchical organization with a lot of bureaucracy and resistance to change,
Yeah.
it's not going to work.
It's not going to be a good fit. It would be like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, you need the right organizational structure and mindset.
You also need to think about the team dynamics.
Okay.
Agile teams need to be self-organizing, collaborative, and comfortable with those iterative processes.
So if you have a team that's used to working in silos, following strict orders, and avoiding feedback,
Yeah.
Agile might be a tough transition.
It would require a shift in mindset.
Yeah, big time.
And finally, you need to consider those stakeholder expectations.
Okay.
So Agile involves frequent communication collaboration
Right.
and potentially even changes in scope or direction.
Yeah.
So if you have stakeholders that are very hands-off, resistant to change,
Right.
or expect everything to be delivered exactly as specified in the original contract,
Okay.
Agile might not be the best approach.
So it's about having those conversations up front,
Yes.
making sure everyone's on board with
Exactly.
that Agile philosophy and way of working.
Yes. Now let's dive into a crucial part of any software development project
Okay.
that's handled differently in Agile:
Okay.
testing and quality assurance.
Oh, yeah. This is a big one.
It is. So in traditional waterfall projects, testing often happened at the very end after the entire product was built.
Yeah, that always seemed a little risky to me.
Very.
You spend all this time and effort building something,
Right.
and then you just cross your fingers and hope it works.
Exactly. Agile takes a very different approach.
Okay, I like it.
Testing and quality assurance are integrated throughout the entire development process.
Okay, so it's about catching bugs and fixing them as you go,
Exactly.
rather than waiting till the end.
Right.
Potentially having to rework huge chunks of code.
It's about building quality in from the very beginning.
I love that. Okay, so tell me more about this continuous testing approach.
So our source outlines some specific practices that support this.
Okay, let's hear them.
So one is automated testing,
Okay.
which involves using software tools to run those tests automatically.
Okay.
Saves time and effort.
Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And it allows the human testers to focus on those more complex and nuanced aspects.
Right, the things that machines can't do.
Exactly. Another practice is code reviews,
Okay.
where developers review each other's code to identify any potential issues, bugs, or areas for improvement.
It's like having a fresh pair of eyes on the code,
Exactly.
which is always helpful.
Always.
Okay, what else?
And then there's pair programming,
Okay,
where two developers actually work together on the same code at the same time.
so you got a buddy.
You got a buddy.
You can bounce ideas off each other, catch mistakes early on, learn from each other's expertise.
Exactly. And all of these practices combined with that continuous testing approach really help to ensure that quality is baked in from the very beginning.
I love that it's not an afterthought, it's just part of how you work.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about a challenge that can arise in any project,
Right.
but especially in Agile, where you often have multiple teams
Yeah.
working on different parts of the same product.
Right?
Managing dependencies, I can imagine this gets really complex,
It does.
especially when you have teams working in parallel and their tasks are all interconnected.
So dependencies are like this delicate dance.
Yeah.
You have to carefully coordinate all those steps.
Right, to make sure everything flows smoothly.
Exactly. And our source emphasizes the importance of communication and collaboration.
Yeah, they're like the dynamic duo of dependency management.
They are. So let's start with communication.
Okay.
It's about keeping those communication channels open and flowing between those teams.
Okay, so how do you do that?
So during sprint planning and backlog refinement meetings,
Okay.
teams should proactively identify any potential dependencies and discuss how they will be managed.
So having those conversations up front to understand how the different teams work might be interconnected.
Exactly, and also encouraging those regular check-in meetings
Okay.
or touch points
Okay.
between those dependent teams.
Yeah.
Share updates, discuss progress, and address any potential roadblocks.
So it's not just about planning for the dependencies, but also staying in communication throughout the sprint.
Exactly.
Make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
Any issues are addressed quickly.
Exactly, and that's where the collaboration comes in.
Okay, so how does collaboration help teams effectively manage those dependencies?
So collaboration is all about working together
Okay.
to find solutions that benefit all those teams involved.
Okay.
So having that shared understanding of the dependencies
Yeah.
and working together to prioritize tasks
Okay.
and resolve any of those conflicts or roadblocks.
It's not about one team dictating to another, but about finding a way to work together effectively.
That's right.
Yeah.
And to help facilitate that collaboration, it can be useful to have those visual tools,
Okay.
like a dependency matrix or a task board,
Hmm.
to display those dependencies.
So everyone can see them.
So everyone can see them, have that visual representation of how things are connected.
Yeah. Helps everyone understand that big picture.
Exactly. And one more tip, try to prioritize those tasks that have downstream effects.
Early on.
Early on in the sprint.
Yeah, get those critical tasks out of the way.
Exactly.
Reduce the risk of those delays cascading down the line,
Exactly.
like dominoes. All right, now let's zoom out a little bit
Okay.
and talk about scaling Agile.
Okay.
What happens when you're not just managing one team or project, but multiple teams and projects
Yeah.
across an entire organization?
Right.
That's when things can get really interesting.
They can try to coordinate those agile practices across multiple teams and departments. Sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It does. How do you even approach that?
So scaling agile is definitely complex,
Okay.
but it's not impossible.
Okay, good.
And there are frameworks and methodologies that are designed to help organizations scale agile effectively.
Okay.
Our source actually provides an example of using the scaled agile framework,
Okay.
or SAFE for short,
Safe, okay.
to coordinate those efforts across multiple teams.
So SAFE is like a blueprint for scaling Agile across the organization.
It provides a set of principles, practices, and roles to help align those teams and make sure everyone's working towards the same goals.
So everyone is speaking the same language.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it helps to address some of those challenges.
Okay.
That can arise when you have multiple teams working on different parts of the same product or system.
Like dependencies.
Like dependencies, communication breakdowns, and conflicting priorities.
So it's about breaking down those silos
Yes.
and creating a more unified and coordinated approach to agile development.
Exactly.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about something that every leader,
Okay.
agile or not,
Right.
has to face making tough decisions.
It's part of the job.
Especially in the fast-paced world of agile, where
Yeah.
things are always changing, you have to make those decisions quickly.
Absolutely.
How do you make those difficult calls?
So our source shares a great anecdote
Okay.
about making a tough decision in the midst of an agile project.
All right.
So they were in a situation where a key team member had to take an unexpected leave of absence, leaving this huge gap
Yeah.
in their expertise and their capacity.
Losing a key team member can really throw a wrench into the works.
So what do?
Yeah.
Instead of panicking or trying to immediately replace that person, they got the team together
Okay.
to discuss the situation,
Yeah.
brainstorm potential solutions.
So rally the troops.
Exactly. And they decided to redistribute the absent members' tasks
Okay.
among the remaining team members,
Yeah.
leverage their strengths and skills.
So adapting to the situation, even when it's a challenging one.
Absolutely. And they didn't stop there.
What else did they do?
They reached out to another department
Oh, okay.
to temporarily borrow a resource
Okay.
with similar expertise.
So thinking outside the box.
Ex-
Finding those creative solutions.
exactly. And it really highlights that collaborative problem solving
Yes.
and adaptability that's so key in Agile.
Okay, now let's talk about a challenge that I think a lot of Agile leaders face.
Go.
Handling team members who aren't quite as enthusiastic about Agile as you are.
It happens.
Not everyone is immediately on board with new ways of working.
Right.
So how do you handle those team members who might be resistant or skeptical about Agile?
So resistance to change is natural.
Yeah.
And it's important to approach those situations with empathy and understanding.
Okay.
And our source recommends starting by having conversations
Okay.
with those team members to understand their concerns.
Okay, so try to understand their perspective.
Exactly. What are they struggling with? What are their fears about Agile?
Yeah.
And once you understand, you can start to address them.
Okay.
Maybe provide additional training, share those success stories from other teams,
Yeah.
or even pair them up with more experienced Agile practitioners for mentorship and support.
So give them the resources and the support to make that transition.
Exactly. And it's also really important to emphasize the why behind Agile.
Okay.
Explain how it aligns with the organization's goals and values and how it can benefit them individually.
And be patient.
Be patient because it takes time.
Okay, we're nearing the end of our Agile deep dive, and I'm feeling pretty energized about embracing this way of working. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that's crucial for any professional in today's world.
Okay.
Staying current.
So important.
With all these new Agile methodologies and tools and best practices emerging all the time, how do you keep your skills sharp and your knowledge up to date?
So staying current in Agile is all about embracing that mindset of continuous learning.
I like that.
The moment you think you know everything is the moment you start falling behind.
So how do you cultivate that continuous learning mindset in the world of Agile?
Yeah.
What are some practical things people can do?
Our source highlights several professional development activities that can help.
Okay.
So attending those industry conferences and workshops
Okay.
is a great way to immerse yourself.
Yeah.
Hear from thought leaders,
Okay.
learn about the latest trends.
And network with other people.
Exactly.
What else?
Joining those online Agile communities and forums.
Yeah.
It's a great way to tap into that collective wisdom of the Agile community.
It's like having access to this global network of experts. You can ask questions,
Yes.
share experiences,
Yes.
stay informed about those real-world challenges.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of reading.
Okay.
There are so many books, articles, research papers.
Okay, so carve out time for self-study.
Yes,
Be proactive. Seek out that knowledge.
exactly. And lastly, don't be afraid to experiment.
Oh, I like that.
Try out new tools and techniques in your own projects.
Yeah.
See what works, what doesn't, and share your learnings with the community.
So by actively engaging in all these professional development activities,
Yeah.
you can make sure that your Agile skills stay sharp,
Yes.
that you're ready to embrace the latest advancements.
Exactly.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this Agile deep dive.
We have.
From the Agile Manifesto to managing dependencies, scaling Agile, staying current.
Yes.
We've explored those key principles, practices, and
Yeah.
challenges of this dynamic and evolving approach to work.
It's been quite a journey, but like we said at the beginning, the real learning begins when you start applying these concepts to your own work.
I'm already starting to think about how I can incorporate some of these Agile principles and practices into my own projects. I'm feeling inspired.
That's great. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we hope you take away from this deep dive. Not just a theoretical understanding of Agile, but a practical toolkit that you can use to improve your work, whether you're a seasoned project manager or just starting out.
Yeah, I think we've given our listener a really solid foundation in Agile concepts.
Yes.
And a glimpse into that mindset of a successful Agile practitioner.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground. Those fundamental principles, those specific strategies for success.
Yep.
We've explored those popular methodologies, tackled those common challenges,
Yeah.
and even ventured into that world of scaling Agile
Yeah.
and staying current in this ever-evolving field.
So, dear listener, now that you've been immersed in the world of Agile, what resonates with you the most?
What are you excited to try out
What challenges are you facing?
that Agile might be able to help you solve?
We've given you the knowledge, the inspiration. Now it's your turn to take the reins and make some Agile magic happen.
Exactly. Remember, Agile is a journey, not a destination.
Oh, I like that.
It's about embracing that mindset of continuous learning,
Yeah.
adaptation, and improvement. So keep experimenting,
Yeah.
keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Agile.
Until next time.
Happy Agiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey.
It has.
But like we said at the beginning,
Right.
the real learning begins when you start applying this stuff
Yeah.
to your own work.
Absolutely. And I'm already starting to think about how I can incorporate some of these principles and practices into my own projects.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm feeling inspired.
And that's exactly what we hoped you would take away from this. Not just that theoretical understanding, but a toolkit that you can use
Right.
to improve your work, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out.
I think we've given our listeners a really solid foundation and a glimpse into what it takes to be successful with this stuff.
I think so. We've covered those fundamental principles, those specific strategies for success.
Yeah.
We've explored the methodologies and tackled the challenges.
Yeah, and we even scaled Agile
We did.
and talked about how to stay current in this crazy world.
In this ever-evolving field.
It's a lot to take in, but it's exciting.
It is exciting.
So, dear listener, now that you've been immersed in this world,
Yes.
what resonates with you the most?
What are you excited to try out?
What challenges are you facing that maybe Agile can help you solve?
Yeah.
We've given you the knowledge, the inspiration.
Now it's your turn.
Take the reins.
Make some Agile magic happen.
Yes, make it happen. And remember, it's a journey.
A journey, not a destination.
So keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries.
Of what's possible.
Until next time.
Happy Agiling.